Springfield's Talk 1041. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Got to get my stories here. All right. It is Thursday. We're going to have an author of the week. Sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Christy Fulnecki will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. And tomorrow we'll be at Scramblers. So you can come out and join us as we broadcast live as we do on Fridays. Days we aren't there, that would be Monday through Thursday. We also stream live video along with the audio on YouTube TV, so you can search up Springfield Talk 1041 and find us there. And Monday we'll actually have best. Is that this Monday we have best of?
Yeah.
Right. And
it is the best of. It's pretty good.
Is it the best of the best of?
It is.
Oh, boom shakalaka. That must mean there's just a lot of great stuff going on. That combined with me, I guess made some real magic this week. So we've got some.
You did good.
Fantastic. So we will have Best of Monday. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and that is one that is observed as a paid holiday by our company, and I, for one, observe it by continuing on as an American and a human being, as refusing to put people into categories by color specifically, and just essentially it'll do the opposite of what we see so often in this country, sadly pushed by so many people that actually participate in the marches. There's the irony of the NAACP, which is about specifically categorizing people of color, participating, or I think they may even be putting on the Martin Luther King Jr. March in Springfield, a man who is all about not categorizing people by color. You want to talk about a rewriting of history, and how the vast majority of people that do the virtue signaling of having a march once a year, putting on events once a year in the name of Martin Luther King Jr., when in reality they push the opposite of his message. Can you imagine what the left would say about Martin Luther King Jr. today? He'd be called a traitor. He would be called an Uncle Tom. He would be accused of trying to act white, trying to talk white. He would be treated like pretty much any other black American gets treated who has the same belief system that Martin Luther King Jr. does, which essentially would be any conservative black American. And I mean, can you imagine him as a guest on CNN or MSNBC? They would eviscerate him. And the people in this country that are accused of being the racist are the ones that they don't virtue signal. They just actually every day instinctually live out what it was that Martin Luther King Jr. preached about, and that is just treating people as individual people. You're not automatically to be considered privileged because of your color. You're not automatically assumed or expected to be treated in any way differently, whether better or worse because of your color. We're all supposed to be just human beings, individuals, judged by our actions. Not prejudged because of our skin color and assuming that there are certain life experiences that are automatically associated with that person simply because of their skin color. And those of us who reject all of that, as Martin Luther King Jr. did, we're the ones that are accused of being racist. Well, and it really truly is the difference between virtue signaling versus actual, genuine, authentic way of living one's life. Because the virtue signaling comes from those on the left who would destroy Martin Luther King Jr. today. Oh, but they'll put on a parade and they will virtue signal in his name, pretending as if they are supporters of his message and his cause. And it's hilarious. One, that it occurs, but two, that it's lost on everyone. The irony of a man whose if you were to ask everyone what's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., virtually everyone who could even give you a quote, and I would suspect a large portion of the population on the left couldn't give you any quote whatsoever, but a lot of people on the right, aside from in the context of I have a dream that my children grow up in a country in which they are judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin, and that you have organizations that are all about categorizing people based off the color of their skin that throw these events in the name of Martin Luther King Jr., the irony of it. There has been some significant alterations of the landscape, I suppose would be a good way to put it, over the last 24 hours or so regarding Iran, including the closing of airspace and then the opening of airspace, direct threats from Iran, comments by President Trump. There's just been a lot that has been going on that signals something is happening, for better or worse, that there's something going on. And I'll update you on what publicly has information we are aware of, including one report that there is a belief that the U.S. military intervention could begin within 24 hours. So you have signals of that occurring, but then you have signals of the opposite as well. It's anyone's guessing game, which I would argue is one of Trump's strengths. Creating an environment in which the ability of the opposition to predict his move is almost zero. Now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 43. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Friday, partly sunny and breezy with a high near 46. And taking a look at Saturday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 31.
Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, welcome. We've kind of, those of you watching the stream, tooled around somewhat with the lighting. So if you've noticed a difference there, I guess that,
I think it looks better.
yeah.
I don't know. I need
See,
feedback.
I don't see it. And what happened actually, because I don't see the feed with the monitors I have. I have other monitors that I monitor, and the Facebook Live, the YouTube Live feed is not one of them. And last weekend, I'm watching one of the few channels that really seem to have on YouTube some as up-to-date information as possible about what was going on in Iran. And so I was just up late watching it and just trying to get as much information about what was going on. And then I saw, when I was done, our live feed hopped out. I thought, there's our live feed, and I wonder what it looks like on my TV. And I opened it, and I was like, my God, the lighting it looks really bad, which I knew we didn't have great lighting in here for a feed. And maybe it was my TV and the fact that the TV's so large, but I thought this lighting just looks really bad. So anyhow, that's what we got to work on, kind of tinkering around with it and getting some different lighting and so anyhow, if you notice that, or I think Sarah said that there was perhaps some reflection on my glasses, and but we do what we can.
Yeah, we do not have great lighting. Or our studio's not very big, so it's kind of hard to maneuver where the lights actually really need to go.
Yeah, I think our studio is larger than a lot of people have, but it still just isn't quite it is awkward. The layout's not great. And so there are a lot of challenges that we have when it comes to virtually every aspect of the show.
Yep.
So we're
doing the best we can.
We're doing the best that we can, and the way I like to look at it is, clearly given the results in terms of listenership and ratings in the marketplace, we demonstrate that it's the content that really is the winning formula for us over everything else. A lot of great steak, maybe not so much sizzle, but that's all right. I'd rather it be that way than the other way around. All right, so there's a report that it came out yesterday, Reuters, that U.S. military intervention in Iran could begin within 24 hours. Bases pull personnel, shift posture across the region. Trump weighing imminent military action against Iran that could come in the next 24 hours, according to a Reuters report citing European officials, as the Pentagon begins pulling personnel from key U.S. bases across the Middle East, and Tehran warns that it would retaliate if Washington strikes. The Reuters report, published yesterday, said 2 European officials assessed U.S. military intervention now appeared likely, with one saying it could come within the next 24 hours, while an Israeli official similarly said it appeared Trump had made a decision to intervene, though the scope and timing remains unclear. Which, of course, if this... I could tell you this. I mentioned it earlier. This is a tactic used by Trump, and I believe that it is largely successful. And that is making it virtually impossible to really assess what it is he's going to do. I feel as if I do a pretty good job of objectively predicting what it is that Trump will do when it comes to a number of different issues, but I'm kind of 50-50 on whether or not we will, in any capacity, intervene militarily. Now, much of that is because of what is currently occurring in Iran and knowing that there's a lot of information we don't know, but also it is a deliberate tactic from Donald Trump. This is, whenever Trump leaves all options on the table, this is why. So that the opposition... It's the fear of the unknown. When you cannot peg down what it is that your opposition does, it puts, or is going to do potentially, it puts them in control, because it disarms your ability to to take action based off of what the opposition will do in response to your action. And that is, it's a very powerful tool, understanding your enemy, understanding what it is that they will do. If we do this, here's what they're going to do. If we do this, here's what they're going to do. Trump disarms that. This is why, as absurd as it may seem to a lot of people, whenever there's discussions and questions about, well, I mean, does he exclude the possibility of using military in order to take over Greenland? And the answer's like, hey, yeah, we're not saying anything at all. The media, of course, and the Democrats and some pearl-clutching Republicans like to go apoplectic over it, and because they show their cards constantly. They want the world to know, no, we won't ever do that. And Trump is so street smart. It's got to be maddening to him that people who are tasked with making sure the United States is in the best position possible, particularly when it comes to any sort of potential conflict with other countries, particularly those that want to do us harm, that he understands through practice the great value in the opposition having no clue what it is you will and won't do. And then to have people essentially attempt to sabotage that advantage by running around and trying to define specifically the things that we will and won't do when it comes to dealing with opposition. And by the way, it doesn't have to be opposition in terms of, massive military conflict, but even just when it comes to negotiations. I mean, we're not in opposition with Greenland like we are in opposition with Iran, obviously. But we have desires, Trump has desires that are not being met, and that's national security purposes for the United States and NATO, the Western Hemisphere, that the Dutch and Greenland are not satisfying. And so we're in opposition in that capacity. And it's such a different perspective. It's such a different way of doing things. And when you can just take out the personalities and if you hate Trump or love Trump and just understand the benefits of never showing any of your cards, that is such a powerful tool. Yet we have leadership in this country that's desperate to show almost all of our cards all the time, letting the opposition know, well, now just make sure you know that here's something we absolutely won't do, so you don't have to worry about this, and you don't have to worry about that. It cuts our legs out from underneath us. So, Iran. Reuters reporting that officials, some in Europe, some in Israel, are assessing that the moves that are being made by the United States, and that is particularly the Pentagon pulling personnel from key U.S. bases, all signals some sort of military attack and intervention. Now, of course, and here's the thing again. That may be what Trump maybe is doing that just so they think that we're going to do it. But to the point, you don't really know with Donald Trump. It could be either one. It could be just to make it appear as if we're getting ready to launch because, Trump's full of a lot of bravado. But Trump also did go in and arrest Maduro, and he took out Soleimani during the first administration, and he took out the nuclear capabilities, things that no other president would ever have dared to have done. So nothing is off the table. That is such a powerful weapon of persuasion. Senior Iranian officials speaking on conditions of anonymity said Tehran had warned regional states, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Turkey, that U.S. bases on their territory would be attacked if Washington launches strikes. Qatar confirmed that personnel reductions were underway at the Al Udeid Air Base, which is the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East, and the forward headquarters of U.S. Central Command, describing the move as a response to current regional tensions. Diplomats cited in the report said some personnel had been instructed to depart Al Udeid by Wednesday evening, stressing the move was a posture change rather than an ordered evacuation, with no immediate signs of a mass withdrawal like that seen ahead of an Iranian missile strike last year. Britain has also begun withdrawing some personnel from a military airbase in Qatar, mirroring the U.S. posture shift as Washington weighs next steps. In a separate Reuters report, U.S. officials described the drawdown as involving non-essential personnel, while noting the White House is reviewing a range of potential options, including additional strikes on regime-linked infrastructure and cyber operations should Trump authorize action. Now, at the same time, and the Wall Street Journal has come under a lot of heat because they printed a report a couple of days ago that described a scenario in which J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio were trying to essentially talk Donald Trump out of military action. Trump had made the decision, this is what we're going to do, and this was such a reckless move that J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio have come to him, and they're like, no, you can't do that. You have to go the diplomacy route. Now, both J.D. Vance's office, and I think Marco Rubio also, but I know J.D. Vance's office was the first to come out and say, this is absolutely untrue. 100% not true. What we have done, which is what Trump requires, and what we always do, is we get together and we talk over absolutely every option that's available. And Vance's office was very specific, and Vance himself, that when we do this, he said in this particular scenario, we're not leading with anything. We're not telling Trump this is what we think should happen. These discussions are all about here are the different options, and this is what they all look like in our assessment. And apparently the Wall Street Journal refused to correct that report. So again, you have mainstream media in this country that is attempting, whether it's deliberate or just because of Trump derangement syndrome, to sabotage the foreign policy efforts of this administration. Now, I believe that this once again actually helps Donald Trump. Much like specifically during the first term, the Democrats and the media constantly fear-mongering about Trump is going to start World War III, Trump is going to launch nuclear war, that actually helped him when it came to a negotiating position because it added to the chaos, it added to the inability of the opposition to really figure out what was going on. So the irony is these attempts to paint Trump as some sort of unhinged maniac that was going to end the world, and an attempt to portray Donald Trump as so maniacal that even his inner circle is trying to talk him out of doing this stuff. Ironically, that attempt to harm the administration, I believe, actually helps. So there's a huge silver lining when it comes to foreign policy and the attempt to discredit Trump in that manner. We're going to take a break, and some of the other developments in Iran coming up. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Fields Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 43. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Friday, partly sunny and breezy with a high near 46. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 31.
Yesterday afternoon, Reuters reporting that sources were suggesting or claiming that military strikes in some capacity to Iran or against Iran by the United States was going to occur perhaps within 24 hours. This was coming from numerous unnamed sources, but they were European sources, Israeli sources, and a lot of it was citing the fact that personnel was being moved around, evacuated, non-essential, including UK personnel and many of those diplomats getting out of Dodge. At the same time, for a number of hours early Thursday, Iranian time, so this would have been last night here in the United States, they had closed off their airspace to all commercial flights without any explanation. The closure ran for over 4 hours, according to pilot guidance issued by Iran, which lies on a key east-west flight route. International carriers diverted north and south around Iran, but after one extension, the closure appeared to have expired, and several domestic flights were back in the air just after 7 a.m. Iranian time. Around midday, Iranian state television carried a statement from, again, this was midday Iranian time, carried a statement from the country's civil aviation authority saying that the nation's skies are hosting incoming and outgoing flights and airports are providing services to passengers. It did not acknowledge the closure from earlier. Iran previously shut its airspace during the 12-day war against Israel in June and when it exchanged fire with Israel during the Israeli-Hamas war. Then this story, armed Kurdish separatist groups tried to cross into Iran from Iraq in recent days, stoking fears that the country's spiraling unrest has attracted dangerous foreign militants who could destabilize the wider region. According to reports, Iranian officials said the attempted breach came amid a sweeping crackdown on nationwide protest against the country's regime. Now, some of that this could be accurate information. You could have, forces that see that there is some sort of vacuum that is going to be created because of what they believe is the likelihood of a fall of the regime and, vying for power. It also could just be an excuse by the Iranian regime to crack down on people because they're already saying, hey, regular protesters are cool, they're fine, but we have to kill off some of these people because they're actually national security threats that aren't regular protesters. These are individuals that are essentially terrorists, which I know is hilarious to hear coming from the Iranians, which is the number one exporter of terrorism in the world, something that would clearly potentially change should this overthrow occur. The Iranian regime yesterday issued a direct assassination threat against Trump, broadcasting an image of him from the 2024 assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the warning, quote, "This time it will not miss the target." And then Trump yesterday said the Iranian opposition figure that has become it's the best way to put this. The overall presentation is that the protesters, at the very least, are utilizing or calling for the opposition figure Reza Pahlavi to be the new leader. He's the son of the previous Shah, and so this is the person that from afar, obviously not in Iran, broadcast messages to the Iranian people, giving them encouragement. And so he is, to some degree, the leadership symbol of the opposition. And Trump has said that while he seems very nice, he expressed uncertainty over whether Pahlavi would be able to muster support within Iran to eventually take over. In an exclusive Reuters interview from the Oval Office, Trump said that there is a chance Iran's clerical government could collapse, but he was reluctant to lend his full support to Pahlavi, who is the son of late Shah of Iran, who was ousted from power in 1979. Quote, he seems very nice, but I don't know how he'd play within his own country. We really aren't up to that point yet. I don't know whether or not his country would accept his leadership, and certainly if they did, that would be fine with me. And if you notice, this is somewhat similar to the comments made about the opposition leader in Venezuela. And I think it's relatively accepted that the position Trump has taken when it comes to who ultimately long-term is going to be leader of Venezuela, and his apparent distancing himself from supporting the opposition leader, Nobel Peace Prize winner, and now his comments regarding the leadership and Pahlavi in Iran are for the purpose of doing whatever it is possible to not make it appear as if these leadership changes are at the hands of the United States. Because, here's the thing. For all the guff that Trump gets for being an individual that lacks all book smarts, he seems to understand history in the context of the United States' involvement being attributed to regime change and the powerful messaging that oftentimes accommodates, in the aftermath, and how that is oftentimes used as a tool against anyone within the country that might be pro-America, pro-West. Iran certainly, in their history, has been an example of it, and I think Trump is not ignorant to this fact, and he recognizes the importance of taking away the ability of anti-U.S. forces within those countries to accuse the leadership and try and demonize new leadership as simply being a puppet of the West or a puppet of Donald Trump or handpicked by Donald Trump. And so it's for that reason that very publicly he's like, hey, I don't know, maybe not, maybe, whatever the people decide, but and even going so far as to question whether or not those individuals would be welcomed within the country and would make good leaders, so that he distances himself from that. Trump loves to take credit for stuff, and a lot of people think that he does it to a fault, but I believe what he's demonstrating with these public remarks regarding Venezuela leadership and Iranian leadership, it really does show that when it comes down to it, and when taking credit is something that he believes could work against the best interests of the United States and what it is that the end goal is, he not only doesn't take credit, but he distances himself from it. And so that's what I believe we're seeing. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, the characters and their team. You hear so much about interest rates and, the Fed and Powell under investigation. And what's this going to do? It's going to take the economy and interest rates this way and that way. And, those interest rates do not directly translate instantly to mortgage rates, and there can be a lot of confusion about that. You can have rates drop when it comes to your home loan, just sort of out of the blue, and oftentimes they seemingly kind of run under the radar, at least compared to big Fed announcements, and so you may miss some of that stuff. There's a lot of just because of the way that this stuff gets reported and focused on, and the complexities of how all of that works at the same time can oftentimes leave us making decisions or not making decisions because we don't fully understand the landscapes. Point being, is this where the characters and their team come in? And if this is something that you have thought about doing, maybe you don't even have to necessarily, but you just think, I wouldn't mind moving out in the country, or wouldn't mind moving, tired of having to drive 20 minutes every time we have to get something from the grocery store. I'd like to be much closer to town, but it's not a have-to thing, and you just haven't approached it because you dismiss it out of interest rates. I would reach out to the characters and let them know what's going on, what you're thinking about doing, and they may be able to give you information that really changes your perspective and outlook on it. For any home loan, refinancing, and reverse mortgage questions or needs, I want a great homeloan.com. We got a couple texts in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line. I probably missed, why is your studio so dark? You guys didn't pay the light bill. We talked about this earlier, and it basically boiled down to the fact that while I was at home over the weekend, I pulled up one of our feeds from the studio, and the lighting, and it could be some of it my TV and the size, but I thought, my gosh, that lighting is god-awful. And so we really weren't using any lighting that was meant for video. It's just the standard up-in-the-ceiling elementary school hospital fluorescent lighting that's coming from down. I mean, it's probably everything you're not supposed to do whenever you do lighting for video broadcast purposes. And so we purchased some actual lighting meant for video, photos, and we're just kind of testing it out. Where we may move it around as time goes on. We're not really sure, but that's the reason behind that, because the light was just so harsh and poorly placed, and I just really didn't care for the way that it looked. My concern for Iran is the example immediately to the east. We destabilized the bad guy. Afghan government replaced with our support people, spent years with a large number of American deaths and lifelong conditions for our soldiers, for the previous evil people to regain control in 2 weeks. How will this be different? Well, I suppose that you can't ever guarantee things will be different, but you can note the differences in the beginning, if you will. Afghanistan was obviously ruled by terrorists, and they were, everything's moving along just fine. 9/11 occurred, and then we were like, hey, the Taliban made this possible, so we're going to, boom, get them out. And, that's a much different situation than what's going on in Iran. Afghanistan wasn't a country that had massive protest that were pushing the Taliban to the absolute brink, and then we threw them a bit of an assist in order to just get it over the finish line. And that's what's going on in Iran. And here it's interesting when you listen to the people who are either, some of them are in Iran, but a lot of them are Iranian and they no longer live in Iran. Canada being one of those countries that they live now. Canada, I know for a period of time, had the single largest population of Iranian refugees of any country in the world. And so you get a lot of information from Iranians out of Iran, and it's or Iranians out of Canada. But it's really interesting when you listen to the perspective of people from Iran regarding the leadership, and how similar it is to the perspective of Venezuelans when they talk about Maduro. And that is a perspective that these are not legitimate. These aren't elected people. These aren't, the Ayatollah is not elected by the people, appointed by a council. And, their form of government's kind of weird and convoluted. They have a president, but the president's not ultimately the overseer of the country. It's the Ayatollah, but the Ayatollah is chosen by a council, and you get a council, and some of those people, you do have elections regarding that. But, ultimately, elections are rigged there anyhow. They ban people from the ballot that they don't want to be in leadership positions oftentimes, and many Iranians don't even bother to vote any longer because they say, what's the point? We're not really ultimately in charge. And they, so many of them, particularly those who are protesting and wanting to overthrow the government, have, in their minds, they have not had a legitimate government since the late 70s. And since the late 70s, their country has been taken over by terrorists. And they are very, very clear in their messaging. They're like, we're not even we're Persian people. This is much different. And we as Persian people, with our own identity as Iranians, with our own culture, our own language, we were taken over by this essential terrorist organization through the force of power and imprisonment and torture and intimidation. We used to be a country that was free, and women were wearing shorts and tank tops, and back in the mid-'70s, you couldn't tell us. You can see videos and photos, and it looks like a campus of Berkeley. It's interesting because for all of the belief in this sort of historical Middle East Arab culture, the Ayatollah himself, he's not that far removed from India. This isn't somebody whose ancestry is Iranian, is Persian, back 1600 years. I think he's just a couple generations removed from India. Maybe his great-great-grandfather. So he's not even really viewed as somebody with these ancestral ties to that region anyhow. Now, none of this is an argument that, this is why the U.S. should get involved or shouldn't get involved. I'm just telling you that when you listen to the Iranian people, that, this is something, and you can see it in the numbers of people, which is why the Iranians have done everything they can to cut off information to the rest of the world, or at least it's one of the reasons that they have attempted to do it. But the point being is, it's interesting the similarities between the perspective of those who are in Iran looking to overthrow the leadership and those who defended the United States arresting Maduro, in their perspective that Maduro was never our president. This is a guy who ran for re-election, lost overwhelmingly, and said, you know what, I think I'll just be president anyhow, and began throwing people in prison and truly disappearing them and torturing them if they said otherwise. So, regarding the comparison between and the understandable nervousness about this becoming another Afghanistan, the thing in Iran is something that the people want and they're fighting for, and thousands of them are giving up their lives in order to do it. And so that is a difference. I suspect Trump, again, would not involve us in an Afghanistan. So that is the sort of thing he does not like. Trump and his long argument against like forever wars and endless wars and getting involved in wars that he pushed back against wasn't the idea. It wasn't against the idea of the United States using our military in any way whatsoever, particularly when it comes to foreign countries that might have implications on the United States, but about doing it badly, about doing just what it is that people rightfully so have concerns about in Iraq or in Afghanistan, in which we decide, regardless of what the people want, we're going to go in, we're going to be in charge of the war, and then we're going to start to tell people what to do. That's not Trump's perspective on this, I suspect, and I think he's demonstrated that. And it's why I believe if it is at all possible for the United States to have no involvement whatsoever, that's what he's going to do. He will do the absolute least amount that is necessary in order to, or if there is any need or decision that there's a need for military involvement to help the Iranian people just, get that final little push that they need. Ideally, you want to know what I think would be just perfect? Absolutely perfect. If they do need help militarily, is for Trump to behind the scenes be arranging for a number of these other countries together to take care of it militarily. That if there are any sort of military attacks, it is some sort of coalition of Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and Qatar and a number of these countries working together to do it. That would be the absolute ultimate A-team. And with Donald Trump, who knows? Only if there's one person on the planet that could make something like that actually occur, it would be Donald Trump. I will tell you one thing that I do believe for certainty, and that is if the Iranians fail and the regime retains control after all of the killing of people, and the United States does nothing after Trump told the Iranian people publicly, we'll be there to help you, that would be a huge blow to the credibility of the United States. Springfield's Talk 104.1. It's a big month. My friends at Pinnaker Honda. Bruce said this: we have been customers of what was Don Wessel, but now the Pinnaker family and Pinnaker Honda since 1986. And it is their employees and service department that will continue to bring us back wonderful and honest service, probably the best service department in all of Springfield. Would certainly recommend to absolutely anyone. Also want to mention our service rep, Josh, who we've worked with for a number of years. Very personable, trustworthy. He remembers his customers. Josh, being recently promoted, introduced me to Devin as our new service rep. Devin is a wonderful and highly customer-oriented young man. Highly recommend owning Hondas as well as local and newly updated Pinnaker dealership. And, to the point of the service department there, part of the Pinnaker advantage is you get 20% off routine maintenance when you purchase a vehicle from Pinnaker Honda. And if you're like me, my truck came from their Chevy dealership in Republic there on 60, and then they also have the Chevy Buick GMC dealership in Branson. And if you have purchased a vehicle from one of those locations, you still can get 10% off routine maintenance at the Honda location there on South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. So there's a tremendous number of deals going on right now with the 26s, with leases as low as $199 a month, and a number of 25s, including Honda Pilot with 2.49% APR or $1,500 sales credit. So a lot going on getting into the new year with Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Christy Fulnecki's here this morning. How do you do that?
Good morning.
It's great to see you.
Yes, it is very dark, but
What's darker?
I kind of like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It reminds me of being at home and my electricity goes out.
we can.
Because our electricity and our well always go out. So kind of reminds me of that. But
Why does that happen?
apparently it is part of country living. Our well something's gone wrong with our well like 3 or 4 times. We've lost water this year. And when you have 8 people at your house, it's always been like during a holiday. It happened like 2 days before Christmas.
Sounds like sabotage to me.
I probably, well, you never know. Especially with our life, But, we did I didn't even hear you guys. Did you guys talk about New Year's resolutions or anything? I mean.
I don't know that we
I
did.
I don't think we did. We usually talk about that. I don't know. We did our dream boards for our family last night.
Oh, yeah, dream boards. Are they,
yes, I'm telling you.
I thought they were called dream catchers. I thought that's what your people did. I guess I was wrong about that.
Oh, yeah, we don't do dream catchers. Yeah, that's
you don't catch dreams, you create them with dream boards.
No, we don't do any of that creepy ancestor thing.
For people that don't know what a dream board is, would you explain that?
Yes, you kind of put we print off pictures. It used to be magazines, but it's hard to find pictures of magazines anymore. And you cut pictures out, and it can be a goal for this coming year or in a few years, something that you want to work on. But the amazing thing is, with our family, we do it with all our kids, even, the teenagers or the younger teenagers. They do not like to do it. They roll their eyes and complain so much. And imagine that. And so, but
did they put pictures of people not doing dream boards on their dream board?
Just like paste of pictures, like haphazardly, and they're protesting. But a couple of years ago, it was amazing. My daughter Samantha, that goes to OU, obviously that's been in the media, a couple of years prior to when she was at University of Oklahoma, she put down OU, she put tennis team, all of this stuff, and everything that she put on her board came to fruition. So it all came true. Then my daughter Abby, even a couple of years ago, before she even applied to college, she was just interested in different schools. She put the Naval Academy and, all of these other things. And I said, we went back and looked at it, and I said, oh my gosh, everything in your board came true. And my oldest daughter at LSU,
So the kids that don't fulfill their dream boards, do you punish them or just ridicule them or?
No, one of them got her phone taken away because she wouldn't come and participate. So she finally decided that, well, is it the dream board or the phone? I can't decide which one.
Well, what's on your dream board?
Oh, okay. This is a good one. Okay, they thought this is funny that, getting closer to God, so reading more of the Bible.
Right,
and
that's good.
Getting more involved with church, which you guys are getting involved with church too.
Yeah.
And, but then I put they said I printed a picture of Jesus that he was actually laughing. So I was looking at the pictures. So I'm like, do I put a serious Jesus or do I do like a laughing Jesus? And Sarah, no offense to this, but I was like, I grew up Catholic and we've been Catholic forever or were.
It's more serious tone.
And more like,
Stoic
well,
and
and to me, like more judgmental and
okay.
like punishing.
Oh, okay.
And so then I was like, since I've been saved, I think of Jesus more as, happy and my friend, even though there is the judgmental part, obviously, but like kind of a more loving Jesus. So I put this picture, which I mean, I put the picture of him smiling and the kids are laughing and somebody's like, that looks like Ryan Gosling. I'm like, what?
It's like Ryan Gosling.
So, and then I did.
So essentially the non-Catholic Jesus is more like Ryan Gosling than the Catholic Jesus.
So I don't know.
Is what more like John Malkovich, Liam Neeson?
I know that he's laughing up there at me, but I mean, it was kind of like his hair was flowing, and to me, I was like, that's that'd be appropriate. But the kids are like, what is that? What kind of AI image did you get that from? And I have goals for my business and working out. I mean, this is a whole thing. There's such a obviously, like at the beginning of the year, the gym that we go to is just totally packed.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and which is good. Everybody starts off, and then in a couple of weeks there'll be nobody there. But I don't do written resolutions because it seems like by February I would always be like, well, I'm done with this.
I'm surprised you all don't have a home gym.
We have like a small one, but for some of the things that we do, we have to go. Yeah.
I have never done a New Year's resolution.
Really?
Yeah, I just never have. Not for any stance or anything. Maybe I'm just so non-committal on everything. I'm like, what's the point? I can't even commit to committing.
Have you done a dream board? Because
no, I've never done a dream board. No.
What?
Yeah, no.
A lot of direct
sales. Have you, Sarah?
No.
Yeah.
Really? Well, the reason I say because a lot of direct sales companies. That's a big
and I've
thing.
been involved in those. And
you do the dream board. You're like,
nope,
I'm
never
not doing this.
No, I mean, I just never have done it before. I don't.
Well, I mean, it's pretty great because you put it somewhere you can look at it, and it keeps you motivated.
And this goes in the garage.
Although, one of my kids, my son, he started folding me. He's like, all right, can I put this in the trash? I'm like, no, you cannot put it in the trash.
We got Christy Fulnecki with us. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line 447 KSGF weather in a moment. Now news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 43. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 32. For Friday, partly sunny and breezy with a high near 46. And Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 31.
Oh, before the traffic, I have to tell you this story talking about dream boards. And I've actually only in real life seen one dream board, and yes, and it was
surprising.
And so here's the story, and this is what I always think about when I hear about dream boards. It was when I worked at Shoney's in my late teens, and there was this gal who worked there, and she was a dishwasher, and I had a cat named a Tocqueville that had been pawned off on me by this girl.
This is a strange
Yeah,
story.
I know. By this girl, Brooke Pyle was her maiden name, and she and I went to high school together. And she had this cat. She pawned it off of me, and then I had to get rid of it because I couldn't have a cat where I lived. And so this girl was talking about how she really wanted a cat, and I didn't know her that well. I just worked with her, and so I said, "Oh, well, I have a cat," and so okay. Oh, she was so excited about it. It wasn't like a week later, and I don't know if I gave her a ride home or something, but I ended up in her apartment and she had a dream board. I remember, and she was talking to me about it. And then at some point I was like, well, where's de Tocqueville? And she's like, oh, she died. I was thinking, you had her like a week. I was like, what happened? She goes, I don't know. She just died. She seemed completely unaffected by it. So I was thinking,
It's kind of a
That's
dark
scary.
story.
I know. And so that is, every time I hear about dream boards, I just remember that gal. That I say girl. I don't remember. She may have been an older lady. I have no idea. I just have that memory because I had entrusted her with de Tocqueville. And she's like, oh, yeah, she died. Like, okay. And then we went right back to her explaining the dream board to me, which apparently wasn't anything that involved being a good caretaker of animals. Christy Folnecki with us. We were having a
Yes.
previous discussion about dream boards and Jesus. And a text coming in that reads, I don't even go to church, and I feel like this conversation is offensive. Valid.
It's
Valid.
funny.
All right. So we had talked on Monday and then Tuesday as well about the fact that Monday, Bill Clinton was scheduled by way of subpoena
Totally.
to give testimony regarding Jeffrey Epstein. Hillary Clinton on Tuesday, they both defied it. And now Comer, who heads up the House Oversight Committee, he said that, and this was last night, that House Republicans do have enough votes to hold both the Clintons in contempt of Congress after they refuse to comply with the subpoena. And, it's still,
Wow.
again,
Good.
I saw some article about some actress, talking about the Epstein files. And it's just amazing how it's always in the context of Trump. whose administration has gone to court numerous times to get grand jury testimony revealed and has turned over 10,000 pages. And I know there's still some, but when you have the Clintons that violate the law
Yeah.
in order to not give information about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, it just shows that these people on the left, they don't care at all about this other than it's something that they can use as a weapon against
Yeah. And
Trump.
they were said, oh, it's just sex when they were talking about
Yeah.
him. And the crazy thing is that, I have not heard anybody, well, unless I missed it, in Hollywood about all those pictures of Clinton in the hot tub and all
Of
that.
course not.
I mean, it's
Just like people in
crazy.
Hollywood are silent on this Iranian thing.
Oh, yeah, right.
I mean,
That's-
they are so transparently full of crap.
no.
And the fact that, even when they had the Golden Globe Awards, one of the
I was just thinking about that when they were
one of the people who, and this wasn't a secret, this has been reported on, one of the Iranians that had been killed by the regime with all of this is a film director.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now, you'd think
Oh.
that they could bring themselves to wear a pin for that guy or what, because here he's in such an oppressive regime trying to spread the arts and everything. Nope, not a word for him. Instead they're wearing pins for this woman that tried to run over an ICE officer.
It's so, when I first saw that about the subpoena, I thought, I deal with this every day in court and people being punished and being compelled to show. I mean,
sure.
we have arguments all the time
Yeah.
about this. And then you see a former president. And plus they were both, except I don't think they have their law license. I think they lost it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they were debarred back then.
Well,
And just
I know Bill
disbarred.
Clinton, but I think Bill Clinton did get his back.
Oh, he did.
I think he did, but I don't know what the status is on this.
Obviously you're an attorney, so you know the ramifications of not showing up, and then how bad does that look?
Well,
Like,
and the real, if you want to see it as problem for everybody involved in this, and then the hopes that it'll just go away, is the fact that Steve Bannon did the exact same thing. He had a subpoena, and he argued, I'm not legally required to testify, and he was put in prison for it.
yeah,
For the exact same thing that the Clintons are doing. And so, it makes it a little more difficult for particularly Republicans to not hold them accountable, because that's what a lot of people are expecting, that they will not be charged and they will not serve any
I
jail
really
time
hope
because
they do.
and
I'm
well
just so
and
tired. Is not enforcing anything.
so you've got two steps here. Now, Comer, I was predicting that there would not be enough Republicans to pass the contempt. Now, then there's the second step. Will they be charged? And I think what also is in the mix here is the fact that Pam Bondi is arguably the single least popular person in the Trump administration. Trump supporters can't stand her. They feel as if she constantly drops the ball and makes promises she doesn't keep. They just view her as a failure. And there have been reports that Trump's unhappy with her, but who knows? It's the media, whether
Yeah.
that's true or not. And so if she decides not to, pursue things like were pursued with, she wasn't in charge, but with Steve Bannon, I think it's just going to add to the anger about all of this. And, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But like I said, I didn't think there'd be enough. Comer says that there are enough votes. Now, it'll get out of committee, but in terms of the entire House voting for it, I just figured there'd be enough Republicans side with Democrats because they're afraid of how it'll look and will be accused of weaponizing the system and all that sort of stuff. So if the votes actually do exist, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But the next step is what's important, because the Clintons don't care about being held in contempt. That's irrelevant to them. So we'll see.
Yeah, he was already impeached. I really hope that Republicans follow through with this. I'm just so tired. And
I know.
and the thing I have with Comey, and I'm like, what? Okay, get it together. We're finally, it's almost like we have to drag ourselves across the finish line because we're our own worst enemy.
I know.
Really, that's what, I really hope that congressional Republicans step it up.
I think that the irony of Republicans concerning themselves so much with being accused of this and how it'll hurt them during the midterms, If they don't at least attempt to hold the Clintons accountable the same way others have been held accountable, like, in terms of jail time, I don't think that necessarily is going to. It will just add to the overall belief and feeling that a lot of Republican or Trump voters have, that what difference does it make if Republicans are in charge anyhow in the House, because they don't do anything.
Yeah, right.
And not that following through and going after them is going to necessarily help. I just think that not doing it is just going to add to this sense of there's no point. There's no point. And that's who they need, the Trump voters. They keep talking about Republican base. It's the Trump base that they need.
Right.
And I just fear that the average Trump person who votes for Republicans when they happen to go vote because Trump's on the ballot, that they don't feel really necessarily compelled to.
In the midterms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at things like, Omar and all these people that you think, why in the world is she still in Congress? And you think they could do something about that and have a vote. I mean, we do have the majority. Why is she still there?
Well, and that's the scary thing. If Republicans lose, we're not talking about policy stuff here. We're talking about putting people back in charge that are actively recruiting and encouraging people to attack law enforcement.
Yeah.
This is so far beyond. We thought the whole BLM thing was bad.
Oh my gosh.
In which they were trying to pretend as if the violence wasn't existing, and they were at arm's length encouraging the riots. The Democrats are fully embracing it now, and they're calling these people the enemy. They have just declared war against Americans that are serving their country, and all for what? People who aren't even American citizens. People, many of which are murderers and rapists, and to the point that I've made on numerous occasions over the last 5 years. Find any press conference the Democrats have ever held to honor someone or to highlight someone.
Yeah,
it's never a law-abiding citizen. It's never somebody that was murdered and raped by an illegal alien. It's always the criminal. Always. It's always the wife beater. It's always the drug trafficker. It's always the person who should not be in this country anyhow. That's who they constantly stand up. And there's actually,
because that's who they are.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, like Tim.
That's what's scary.
He has that press conference, and of course you're going to defend people that break the law because that's what they do. So, I mean, that was the most ridiculous speech I think I've ever heard.
There was an article that, it was Fox News, Meet the Minnesotans Killed by Illegal Immigrants that Walt's Dems never held news conferences or vigils for. And it goes through specifically listing these people in Minnesota. They're just innocent civilians, hardworking people, never have done anything wrong. Like in August of 24, a mom in Minnesota was killed in a car accident after being struck by a drunk illegal alien. Then you got, Haley Hagelson, 18, raised in Minnesota, born in St. Paul, killed last year along with her boyfriend while traveling, was struck by a drunk driver who was in the country illegally. And they go down the list of all these people, specifically in Minnesota. Not one Democrat holding a press conference.
Yeah,
with their families, talking about the need to make sure these things don't happen. It's always for the people who commit the crimes.
Yeah, that's
and how it's mind-boggling. Aside from the policy differences, I understand that people have. This doesn't mean that you need to vote Republican by default. But how on earth can you constantly support people who every time they stand up to defend someone is someone who's killing people like you?
Yeah.
Who are out to murder you, who are out to take your children and sex traffic them. Those are the only people that they ever publicly stand up for.
Yeah, and this week watching these angry cat ladies just go insane.
Yeah, they're mental. There's a real mental issue here. There's a definite mental health issue.
And they've been playing all of their videos and stuff. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
And that's who it's interesting, because the left weaponized the black population during Black Lives Matter. And now what they're weaponizing are usually, but not always, but usually the white liberal woman.
Yeah.
And so they're taking those individuals, which if you notice, oftentimes they aren't in a traditional family. Some of them may have kids, but there's no father and there's no husband, and they're oftentimes don't necessarily have jobs, and they're just sort of lost in life, and they're emotionally unhinged. And it's not a coincidence that these are the people that have taken to constantly attacking police officers, because the Democrat Party and the media has weaponized. They've realized okay, this is our new target. We can dispatch these people to go out and do our work. And aside from the fact how cowardly, and no wonder Democrats have a real hard time understanding what a real man is, because you have these so-called self-described men that
Yeah, right.
that are encouraging mentally unwell women, oftentimes who have kids, to put their lives in danger in order to fulfill their
And
political
it's called
goals.
taking advantage of
Yeah,
them.
it's sick. It's a toxic relationship. More with
Yeah.
Christy Fulnecki coming up. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 43. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Friday, partly sunny and breezy with a high near 46. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 31.
On our Hardscapes and Outdoor, I, of course, for almost a year now, been talking about the incredible work that they do, particularly outdoor living spaces, and the fact that you do need to plan ahead of time with these folks, and they can create for you. You may not even know what it is that you want, but they're not just bricklayers. I mean, these guys they're artists, if you will. You tell them, and that's how I was like, I don't really know what I want. I know what I want to do. Like I know, but I don't know what that looks like in terms of infrastructure, and so they help develop that. But outdoor lighting is something that I've talked about, and they do that above and beyond the quality that you find with virtually anyone else at all, and certainly better than doing it yourself. And it isn't just something that, to me, does more to change the appeal of your home in the night in terms of looks, but it's such a great security thing. Do you guys have uplighting on your house? You guys definitely. You should get it. You know what?
Remember, we're redoing our whole house.
Yeah, you definitely, because it just changes the sense of security people who want to prowl around your house feel. I feel almost more safe with that on our home than anything else we have going on, because
that's actually a good idea.
Well, you look down our street.
We do have security guards.
Yeah.
So,
but like in our neighborhood, you look down the street, and we don't live in a dangerous neighborhood. We don't have through traffic, and so I don't really worry about it. But I just see these. I'm like, if I am prowling around, my house is the last one I'm going to prowl around, because the whole thing is a wash and light, and it looks really nice. And so you can't prowl around because there's lights on the house. So anyway, Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, it's one of the many services that they provide as well. You can find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. You're talking about all of the just violent and hateful messages that you get from people on the left, and we had talked a couple of weeks ago about a local gun store owner off C Street here that was falsely labeled as the ICE agent that was hit by that woman. And so the left went to attack him, even though he clearly was not the same person. Like, his name was similar. It was spelled differently. But one, he lives in Springfield. He doesn't even look like. But the point, are you having him on your show?
I had him on last weekend.
Oh, you had him on How did that go?
It went great, yeah. And the thing is,
people can go back and listen to your podcast. Listen to this guy.
Yes, they can. Yeah, it's the first segment, ksgf.com or the KSGF app. But yeah, the name of the gun shop owner, isn't even the same. These leftists found him on Reddit, and they were like, okay, we're going to take him.
Reddit is terrible.
And and here's the thing, and it just shows that they don't care about the truth. They are an angry mob that once they get to burning down a house or a home or whatever, I'm just talking figuratively, and you're like, no, that's not the right one. They're so hysterical and scream. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them. So here this guy clearly demonstrated that I am not this person that you think. They don't care.
I know.
Now, to that story, here's the bright part. Chipotle reacts to woke misinformation boycott threat by pointing out Ackman, who isn't involved. So you got this billionaire, Bill Ackman. He's an investor guy, and he had donated $10,000 to the GoFundMe page for the ICE officer that was hit by that left-wing nut. Mm-hmm. And which we now learn, by the way, as the left tried first to claim he wasn't hit, and then, he was just bumped. He actually had internal bleeding, had to go to the hospital for internal bleeding because he was hit so hard by this woman. So he donated $10,000 to his, I guess what he said it was for a defense fund, because he believes everyone should financially be able to pay for defense if somebody comes after them, legally speaking. Well, so his hedge fund years ago had a 9.9% stake in Chipotle, but several years ago they were completely out. So they don't have anything to do with Chipotle any longer. But some left-wing nut.
Are they trying to boycott?
Yes, Chipotle, because here's what. So and because some left-wing nut claimed that he owned Chipotle, even though he has nothing whatsoever to do with it. And so now you have all these left-wingers demanding that Chipotle be boycotted because the owner donated $10,000, which is not anywhere close to be true. But of course, they don't care.
I know.
They do not care how many innocent people they destroy. They are insane.
No, I totally believe that. I mean, that makes me so mad. And, it's so hard to correct and go after that.
I know. Well,
I mean,
especially when they don't care.
Well, and then there's I could totally speak to this for hours. There's a newspaper in Britain. I can't think of the name of it now. But they did this whole story on me. And they were saying that I was threatening the chief of police when I was on city council. And I was like, what? And then somehow I don't remember what the reference. It was something about when Nick Ibarra and I were on. I forgot to tell Nick this. When we were on city council together, I'm like, okay,
you guys were on at the same time.
On the same time, he was before me.
Oh, okay. I was going to say,
like, chief of police. I was the biggest supporter of the police. I mean, they campaigned for me, both the county and the city. I was like, what are you talking about? And so then I went back, and there was some reference in it was one of the crazies that was going after me during the campaign about the police or something. So they were taking like crazies that were going after me a lot. I mean, that was
online.
Like online, like 10 or 12 years ago, and putting in actual newspapers. So they're not even verifying this, but now there's so many things. And then all of those sources from other countries that are writing these in papers, then it ends up on TikTok, and somebody was like, this story is all over TikTok. But then how do you trying to correct this?
Because,
I mean, it's crazy.
And so then you have people that are independent journalists like Nick Shirley that actually expose the truth about, like in Minnesota, all of this fraud, factual information, trying to interview people, only putting out there the information that is accurate because he just wants to get the source of the information. But then you have the quote official media that dismiss him as not a real journalist, and there aren't checks and balances, then there aren't checkers, and like, you can't trust someone like that. Like, are you kidding me? The media, traditional media, they do not care about truth whatsoever. I mean, your story that you're illustrating that point with there, and it's like, this is why people don't listen to you anymore.
I know. Yeah, right. And then you go, I mean, look at all the defamation lawsuits that Trump's had to file in his lifetime. And so that's what I'm looking into, filing against some of these newspapers. But how does your average person, defend themselves when all these crazies are going after you? I mean, look at, the ICE agent. I mean, he's had to go underground with his family. I mean, he's had to disappear.
His family, who, by the way, his wife is a legal immigrant. A legal immigrant. Yeah, his wife is from, I think she's from Indonesia. I think it's Indonesia or the Philippines or so. And they've been married for, like, a very long time.
Like, you're a victim, and then you have to go underground because of the crazies going after you.
Well, and it's not just, like I said, the crazies, but you have an entire political party and a media apparatus that is fanning the flames, that is encouraging it, that is painting these people as heroes for attacking law enforcement, trying to run over them, and then coming up with these absurd notions. Well, he should have just jumped out of the way. Like, you watch too many movies. In their minds,
I know, right?
In their minds, what should have happened is when she gunned it towards the ICE officer, he should have somersaulted in the air and like grabbed the top of the SUV, and while she's driving 110 miles against traffic down the interstate, and he's, falling off the side and crawling back up, he pries open the sunroof and crawls in there and puts her in a sleeper hold gently so it doesn't hurt her, and then he pulls the car over safely, and then he detains her, and everything's just fine. That, in their minds, that's what should have happened. You hear them, why did he shoot 2 times instead of 3? Or, well, he should have assessed the situation. These are ignorant people that have no idea what they're talking about. And then you have the Democrats that, again, they are encouraging it. They are in full-blown recruitment drive to get more of these people to attack law enforcement.
Yeah, and, it's so refreshing, though, when you have Kristi Noem and you have the administration that are not backing down. Just think of how many, even Republicans, would back down in the face of this and the ridiculous press conference that the Democrats in Congress
Yeah,
had
like I
yesterday.
said, I mean,
I'm like, are you guys mentally ill?
you,
I
you,
think though. I think they are.
yeah, there's never been such a stark divide as to whom it is that each party stands for and defends. And for the Republican Party, it's for average, hardworking people, and it's for victims of crime. And then the Democrat Party, like I said, just pull up any press conference that any of them have done over the past 5 years, and every time it's some sort of criminal. It's an accused rapist, a child abuser, it is somebody in this country illegally, it's a human trafficker, it is a spouse abuser, every single time, consistently. So you have a party that represents criminals, murders and rapists, and terrorists, and then you have a political party that is their priority number one is the law-abiding citizen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're just killing the normal people in their party. I mean, if that Nick Shirley, the reporter, is that his name?
Yeah, I
in
think that's
Minnesota.
correct. I think that's
yeah.
right.
So he was interviewing other minorities when he was going through doing. I think it was on last night's on some channel, but all of these minorities, there was a black man he was interviewing, and I don't know if he was an Uber driver or a taxi, I can't remember. And he said, what do you think about this? He said, I have to work hard every day for a living, and this is just messing up my business because I'm going to have to drive through all this stuff. And he said, they're a bunch of criminals. And he said, what do you think of Tim Walz? He's like, he's a criminal too.
It's almost laughable because they're always like, with the gal who hit the ICE officer, well, she was just dropping her kid off at school. And then there was video of this nut job. She's a extreme left-wing activist, and apparently she is a little mentally unstable. That ICE had to drag her out of her car because she was blocking traffic.
Yeah.
And evidently she was screaming, I'm just trying to go to the doctor. It's like they're all doing these. It's amazing how every one of these people is just doing something
they should
completely
be
innocent. I'm just going to deliver a baby. That's all I'm doing. It's like,
I sure hope that woman that was pulled out of the car that you're talking about, the first thing I thought of, I hope that woman doesn't have kids because those kids are all going to be messed up. They're going to be those trans that go and shoot up the school.
She was, for a period of time, teaching, I don't remember, I think it was at an elementary school on an Indian reservation.
What?
Yeah, I know. She's bing-bonged between lots of like extreme left-wing organs. It sounds like she just has a real issue with stability, and she bing-bongs around.
Teachers? Seen all of these
women, left-wing women. I'm telling you, they're nuts. All right, we got to get a traffic update.
Okay.
More with Christy Fulnecki. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. I follow them on Facebook, and they often give little roofing tips and tidbits that I find interesting, and I will now share some of those tidbits with you. A couple days ago, they had a house that had 3 types of ventilation, and they explained that more is not always better. Mixed ventilation, it can actually cause short circuiting, that the airflow can't just leave the attic, and it then leaves it poorly ventilated. It also can cause insufficient ventilation, and that can lead for moisture to not get exhausted properly. And I thought that they did a really great job explaining why this can cause issues, and I actually had them explain that out at my home when they installed my new roof a couple years ago, because before Pyramid, I had what I called a Frankenstein roof. It was mismatched shingles and vents because the previous owners, they just repaired over and over, and my vents were actually working against each other, and that's why repairs just kept popping up. But the Pyramid team, they got me all squared away, and they can get you all squared away too. If it's time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There was an op-ed. I don't know exactly where this was published, but I read through it, and I just found one part of it really humorous, so I wanted to share it. And it was written by Philip Levine, and he is a former two-term mayor of Miami Beach and a one-time Democratic candidate for governor of Florida. So he's a Democrat.
Okay.
And he had written this piece about, it opens up, I'm a Democrat. My party's botching the reaction to Maduro's capture in Miami. That's the title of the column. And the part that I laughed, where he's talking about how Democrats are, when it came to Maduro specifically, they're sort of like defending Maduro, and they're against the liberation of people from this socialist dictator. And he said, so what is this really about for my fellow Democrats? I believe there are two reasons for the party's reaction. The first is obvious. It can't bring itself to give Trump one iota of credit on anything, which is obvious. The second, this is what made me laugh. The second's more troubling. The party's increasingly finding common cause with Democratic socialists. I was like, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. I was like, what a revelation.
Oh, really?
When there was, it was about a year and a half ago, whenever Republicans began noting that Democrats were really fanning the flames of anger and attacks, physical attacks on conservatives because they would call them fascists.
Yeah,
they're
right.
fascists, they're fascists. And I remember for a period of time, Democrats would try to push back. They're like, well, I mean, they call us names too, like socialists. And we're like, you call yourself that.
I know, that's
Bernie
right.
Sanders is a self-declared socialist.
Yeah.
Mamdani is, and it was before Mamdani hit the scene. Like, you go to any college campus, and Democrats are touting the benefits of socialism. This isn't Republicans calling the left socialist because they know that's a term that people are scared of, and so they want to demonize them. It's because Democrats say this is where we want to go, or this is where we already are. But I found it hilarious. He's like, the second I'm beginning to think my party is warming up. Like, yep.
Understand. So at the end of the article, does it say that he switched parties?
Oh,
I know.
Well, that's the thing that I think a lot
of
these Democrats are going to have to grab. I don't think they realize that the party has changed. This isn't any longer a Democrat party that has a few extreme people. This is the party now. It's the party of violence. It's the party of socialism. It's the party of dictators.
They are losing all of their support for legal immigrants.
Oh yeah.
I mean, legal, and every minority. I mean, like, have you
the
had
party of anti-Semitism?
Has a conversation with someone from another country that came here legally, especially from a communist country? They're like, "What is wrong with your country?
Oh, and
you guys are a bunch of idiots."
Well, we've gone from just weeks ago, particularly women. I find it interesting, particularly women, but not solely, from Venezuela, posting messages specifically to people on the left saying, "You have no idea what you're talking about." And now we're seeing it from Iranians. Iranians, and again, it seems to be predominantly women who are sending, and they start out, this is a message to all my American friends. And it's always telling these people on the left, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have
I just
no
watched something
idea.
About someone last night talking from Iran.
But they don't, that's just leftist. I mean, they don't care. They are driven by this emotional power thirst and punishment. They want to punish people. They can't stand the idea of living in a society with people that you have disagreements with. They can't stand the idea of sometimes you lose an election, so you go out and you argue and debate. That's not that party anymore. It's a party of revenge and punishment. Just look at how they're operating when it comes to ICE. We don't like the law. So instead of going through the democratic process of electing people that can change the law, you just declare, we don't think that it should be followed any longer, and encouraging people to attack those who are trying to enforce the law.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense, too, because you're going to create the chaos that you said that the chaos
That's what they
is
always
what
do.
you're fighting.
Yeah, that's
What
that's
are
what
you talking
the
about?
left always does. That the left is, and I don't mean just here in the United States, but I mean it's what the Iranians are doing right now. They're in their leftist authoritarian perspective. The people who are fighting for liberty and freedom, they claim that, well, that they're the terrorists,
Yeah.
and so that's how the left always accuses the other side of doing what it is that they are openly and unapologetically doing.
Well, and we always knew that Democrats were elitists, from universities to whatever. And now we know that they're criminals too. Because like how do you defend someone in Venezuela that did that to his people and killed his people? How are you not defending just a common everyday person?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not only
power.
just being elitist.
Power
I
and
mean,
punishment. Power and punishment. Christy Fulnecki, as always, thank you.
yes,
A tremendous
that
pleasure
was fun.
having you here
Go
this
do
morning.
your dream board now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Coming up, hour 3, including Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield Talk 1041, and welcome to the show, everyone. We were talking about New Year's resolutions briefly with Christy Fulnecki in the previous hour, and I spoke about how I've never really done New Year's resolutions. I just don't do them. Now, that being said, part of the reason that New Year's resolutions so often fall off and people don't stick with them is because they take a lot of time and they take a lot of effort. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way to make steps in the direction that is the right direction for you and your family. Ozarks Elder Law is a group of folks, and Lori Rook, of course, you're familiar with her, that can help you do the things you need to do that are much needed for when it comes to a lot of the unforeseen or perhaps foreseen circumstances like death that really change your life for the better and the lives of your kids for the better and other family members. And it doesn't take all of that effort that going to the gym twice a week does. So many of us are not prepared for when we die or when a loved one needs to go into the nursing home or if something happens and we're no longer able to make financial or medical decisions for ourselves. We think that, well, we're married or this is, my 19-year-old son. Clearly, I get to make those decisions. That's not the case, legally speaking. Oftentimes, hospitals may default to your judgment, but you don't have that ultimate say unless that stuff is legally documented, and that is what Ozarks Elder Law does. So whether it is preparing for how to pay for a nursing home so you don't have to sell off the family farm in order to pay for it, or how it is that someone is going to make medical decisions for you if you're not able to make them for yourselves, and so much more, Ozarks Elder Law can get you set up. Consultation is free. 10 area locations, and then they will tell you after the consultation what they recommend that you do, the reasons for it, and then what it'll cost to get that done so you can decide with that one price whether or not it's the wise thing to do. I suspect most of you will find that it definitely is, but at least then you know. OzarksElderLaw.com. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. We do have Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books, but I did want to mention here before we get the latest news that we talked about, I think it was the week before last. Josh Hawley was one of a small grouping of Republicans in the Senate that crossed the aisle to join with Democrats to rebuke and attempt to pass legislation preventing Donald Trump from the ability to exercise his executive branch powers when it comes to the use of the U.S. military, specifically citing Venezuela. And Donald Trump was quite angry and declared that those individuals, including Josh Hawley, should not be reelected by their voters. Josh Hawley apparently has had a change of heart. Fox News reporting key Republicans flip and kill effort to restrain Trump's policing power over Venezuela, noting that move that I just mentioned with Hawley joining with the Democrats drew heavy criticism and anger for Trump, who demanded that they should never be elected to office again. The resolution ended up being tanked on a 51-50 vote, with Vice President Vance coming in to break the tie in favor of Trump. Vance doing that because the vice president is the presider over this Senate when it comes to tiebreakers, and that's why J.D. Vance, as vice president, was there to make it a 51-50 vote. Turning to a procedural move served as a victory for both the president and the Senate Majority Leader John Thune. After last week's rare defeat on the floor, Thune, like several other Republicans, contended that the resolution was not germane to the issue at hand in Venezuela. That being the Democrat-led resolution that Hawley had joined up with. Thune, let's see. Let me find the relevant part here, but where it notes that two of those senators, Josh Hawley being one of them, flipped and ended up siding against the Democrats. Collins of Maine, Murkowski, Alaska, Rand Paul, they were the three that stayed with the Democrats on it. And I always put an asterisk next to Rand Paul because he is very, very consistent in his position on these things as opposed to many of these others. But Josh Hawley, and there was, who was it from Indiana? It was a senator from Indiana, Todd Young, ended up flipping to Trump's position on this. So Wanted to give you a follow-up on that because I know a lot of you, including obviously Donald Trump, quite upset with Josh Hawley on that particular move. Hawley did switch his position on that, handing Donald Trump a victory. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 43. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Friday, partly sunny and breezy with a high near 46. And for Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 31.
I'm Nick Reed, and it's Thursday, which means it's Author of the Week time, sponsored by our good friends at ABC Books on North Glenstone. And we always love having in-studio authors, which usually means that there's probably going to be a book signing, and that does apply. We'll give you the details on that. James Owen, the author of The Wicked Among Us, Murder, Blackmail, and Book Collecting in the Ozarks. Thanks for being in here. You said you actually been in the studio with Kyle Wyatt.
I have, yeah. I practiced law down in Southwest Missouri for a number of years, and in that capacity, I was able to come in here and talk to him about various issues and topics, and yeah, always got a kick out of that.
Yeah, he's entertaining.
Yes, he is.
So are you from the area? Because you're in Columbia now, correct? Is that right? Or just give us your background a bit, if you would.
I am in Columbia. I was born and raised in a little town called Elkland, Missouri, which
Okay.
is in Webster County. Went to school K through 12 in Marshfield. Went to college here. Came back in 2005. Practiced law for a number of years, and then had an opportunity to work in Jefferson City. So my family and I relocated to the Columbia area.
The book.
Yeah.
What inspired it? And we'll talk about the book itself, because this is like a mystery of sorts, hopefully yet to be solved.
Yet to be well. That's kind of an open question of whether
Yeah.
it's been solved or not. That's a funny way of putting it, but I'll try to explain that. About 20 years ago, I went to work for Roland Comstock, who was a probate and estate planning lawyer in North Springfield. He had been practicing law here since the early 1960s. He was an older guy. He was more renowned, and really renowned worldwide, as a book collector. He collected first edition books.
Okay.
His home, just north of McDaniel Lake, north of Springfield, had a 3-story library built onto it. He built it onto it. Dead authors at the top, living authors at the bottom. He collected signatures. He spent $50,000-$60,000 a year on his book collection. He traveled around the world to get these signatures. He was profiled in the Washington Post, profiled in the London Times. He was well known for doing that, in addition to being a really good lawyer.
And what period of time was that around?
So when I went to work for him, it was 2006.
Okay.
He got a lot of attention initially as a book collector in the mid 90s, because that's when the Washington Post came to his house and did a whole article about him and his collection. So I think that's when he started getting a lot of attention for it. He was better known in kind of author circles and collector circles and that sort of thing. But he had practiced law here from the early 60s, where he was also a state rep from the north side of Springfield, and got involved with a lot of funny, colorful cases. He represented a bulldog that was going to receive an inheritance from his deceased owners. Butch the bulldog, that's kind of a notorious story around here. The court appointed him to represent the dog's interests in a lawsuit involving that inheritance. So there's a lot of funny anecdotes about his time as in practice. But he was kind of going through some hard times when I went to work for him. He had just gotten a divorce from his wife of 38 years. They were in a very serious, very contentious battle over the house, over selling it, over who was going to own it. And ultimately, the day after that real estate listing expired on that house, he was found shot dead in his kitchen. That was in July of 2007. July 2nd, 2007 was when he was murdered. And so then there was an investigation. The Greene County Sheriff's Department, because it was outside city limits, investigated it. To be fair to them, there was not a whole lot of evidence for them to work with. There was no gun. There was no DNA. There was her briefcase that had been left in the library. And that was it, really. There were some other things, but we get into that a little more in the book. There were never any charges brought against anyone. However, and this is where we get into whether this is a solved case or not, Roland's daughter filed a wrongful death civil suit against her mother for causing his death.
So she clearly believed.
She clearly believed there was evidence for that. And she hired the firm I went to go work for after I worked for Roland, Hosmer, King, and Royce. A lot of people will know Craig Hosmer is the city councilman here. Stuart King, who is now no longer practicing, he had a stroke and he's no longer able to talk. He litigated that case and got a civil jury to say Alberta Comstock pulled the trigger and killed him.
And a lot of people know this, especially if they watch Datelines. The threshold for a civil case is different than it is for a criminal case.
That's right. You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal case that there's no other possibility someone else did this. With a civil case, it's a preponderance of an evidence, which is, it's hard to put a number on it, but you want to say like 51%. More likely than not. And so that's not precise. I mean, ultimately, that jury or that judge is going to have to make a judgment call literally. And they're just going to look at the evidence. They're going to have to weigh the credibility of the people that are testifying, and they're going to have to make that call. But yes, it is easier
Right.
to prove a civil case. That's for sure.
We are talking with our author of the week, James Owen. The book, The Wicked Among Us, Murder, Blackmail, and Book Collecting in the Ozarks. Did the daughter feel immediately, because of the contentious relationship, I think mom did this, or was that something that developed over time?
When you look at the people who were cooperative with the sheriff's department, there was a belief that it was either the ex-wife, and there was some belief possibly it was a son that could have been involved as well, Michael Comstock, who there was, other than some DNA that was found on a cigarette butt that was found on the property, there was really no evidence that tied him to the property either. I just want to make that clear. But there were a lot of people who came forward to say, oh yeah, Michael Comstock said he was involved with this, he did that. However, a lot of those people were trying to get plea deals on their criminal cases, and so they were not found to be very credible as far as witnesses. So yeah, so I think there was a question of whether or not it was the ex-wife or could have been this son.
Now, how did, if at all, the ex-wife and or the son benefit from his death?
Alberta, the ex-wife, did talk to people who believed that if something happened to Roland, if he had died, that she would get the house.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is not how that was going to work out. The house was owned by a trust. It was going to be going to people who were going to benefit from the trust. But she was supposed to receive some money from some lawsuit settlements. And so I think it was her belief that she would have gotten the house had something happened to him.
So it was the argument or the belief that that's why it happened a day after the listing expired, that in her thinking somehow that would result in her receiving the home as opposed to while it was still listed?
I think the house became a symbol for her anger and hatred towards her ex-husband. And like anybody who's involved with, talk to Kyle Wyatt about divorces and family law, there are people who, there's an irrationality there. There's a frustration there. There's a belief that their whole life was a lie because they were in this sham of a marriage or whatever you want to call it. I think that house became a symbol for her. Okay. I think she was fighting for that house because she believed it was going to somehow vindicate this whole 38 years she had been married to Roland. And then when that house listing expired, it was also the same day that she ended up firing some of her lawyers from some of the lawsuits that were involved with her ex-husband. I just think that there were a number of things that happened on that day that pushed her towards Springfield. She was living in Oklahoma at the time. And I believe that pushed her to Oklahoma, where she was either going to confront him or do something. And I don't necessarily know if she got in her car coming to Oklahoma to do this, but I certainly think that she was very angry, and a lot of circumstances had led her there.
We are talking with James Owen. Again, the book is The Wicked Among Us, Murder, Blackmail, and Book Collecting in the Ozarks. You clearly had a close relationship, so this is something that, you had probably an emotional connection to. When this first occurred, did you have a sense of what may have happened, given your knowledge of relationships, or is that something that developed as you wrote the story and gathered additional information that you maybe didn't have before?
When I originally found out about it, I got a call from one of our mutual clients, and I just assumed he had some sort of heart attack, and he was 70 years old.
Okay.
He was diabetic, he had heart disease, had polyps in his lungs. He had all sorts of health problems. I just assumed that's what happened. But then I was talking to somebody else, a news reporter who I was friends with in Springfield, who said, they're investigating a homicide, and I think it's your old boss. And my immediate thought was, as I think anybody who, is kind of involved with the law and kind of involved with any kind of disputes like this, your immediate thought goes to someone who knew the victim.
Sure.
And I think that you see that happen a lot. And I also, because I think this is another quirky twist to this, Nick, is he lived in a house that was surrounded by wolves. He had pet wolves. Okay, so
Not common.
not common, and not animals that are going to just sit there and let a random
Okay.
person come into your house.
Got it.
So my
Sure.
immediate thought was, if anybody had went into that house, a stranger, there was speculation it was somebody he met on the internet, which is a whole other element of this story, but I'll get into that if you want to, that he had let a stranger in, or a stranger had broken in to rob him and they had killed him. However, with those wolves there, I just do not believe they would have let a stranger in that house. Everybody who went into that house, even people who were there a lot, his paralegal, Becky Frakes, who is prominent in the book, his daughter, Faith Stalker, who he was very close with, they were scared of those wolves. The only person who was never really scared of them and they knew was Alberta. So it just, to me, the presence of those animals and the fact you have these huge gates around this house, 8 feet in the air, 3 feet in the ground, so no neighbor dogs could dig in, because that used to be a problem. Neighbor dogs would get in there and they wouldn't come out.
Were these wolves in the house?
They had free reign of the whole property.
Why?
He loved them. He was their den father. He was the guy in charge. He was
Did
their
that? I know this by no means is the point or a major
it's
theme of the
this
story,
now.
but I just was that an accidental thing for him that became something like, oh, I found some wolves, or did he have some interest and set out to have wolves?
It was initially Alberta's idea. She
Okay.
loved wolves. She had kind of this, like, I don't know, like, she's from Oklahoma. I think there might have been some sort of like kind of mystical thing.
Okay,
for
sure.
her. He kind of wanted to give her something a project to
Okay.
work on.
Oh.
So they adopted these mix wolves, which they had to adopt the whole pack
Okay.
because you can't just adopt one of them. And so they were there, and I think ultimately they got crossways with the Missouri Department of Conservation, who were saying you can't have these. It became kind of a legal cause for Roland, and I believe that kind of bonded him to those animals, was fighting for them to stay there.
He had a lot going on.
He was an interesting guy, Nick. So, I mean, somebody should have. I mean, that was what people kept telling me. Somebody should write a book about this guy. So that's what I did.
How much of the book was knowledge that you already have? I mean, was this, oh, I've got it right here, or was a portion of the book after you decided this is an interesting story, I want to write about it, and then there was a lot of discovery after you decided to write the book?
Certainly, I knew everyone involved. I knew a lot of the feelings and attitudes about it. I mean, that was a good foundation. But knowing details about his life, knowing details about his family, knowing details about the investigation, I had to learn all of that. And that took a long time to do. I was working full-time, got married, had kids, moved, did all of these things while I was kind of working on this. And, you know, it required a lot of talking to people who knew him, reading his letters, reading his scrapbooks, talking to county clerks about trying to get files from like the 1960s on some of these cases he worked on, ordering the transcripts for the civil trial, which, by the way, is not cheap. So I really did try to do as much as I could to, you know, do this from an objective perspective. I don't really mention myself at all in the book. So I tried to make this a book that people would kind of be able to look at it cold, and it's not necessarily got personal elements to it. I tried to make it as direct of a story as I could.
Was there anything that you discovered that made you at some point go, huh, maybe I got this wrong?
I certainly think that during the period of investigating, I know that there was a lot of criticism of the Greene County Sheriff Department, and I'll confess I don't shy away from that criticism in the book. However, in talking to people and looking at what they had to work with, it was very clear they did not have a lot of evidence. And so I think that while you could question whether or not they should have been looking at different people, going down different leads, you also have to recognize they are professionals who were making judgment calls based on what they believe the evidence was taking them to. And so, you know, you can understand where the sheriff's department and the prosecutor's office had a dilemma on their hands. They had a high-profile case that didn't really have a lot that they could take in front of a jury to prove that very significant burden they have to imprison somebody for causing this death. And so, I mean, I think I became much more sympathetic to that point of view as I was researching it.
Sure. Um, any final thoughts or takeaways that you'd like for the readers who pick up your book, and we'll talk about that here in a moment, that you'd like them to walk away with?
One of the things that I tried to do very consciously with this book was make this about Roland. I know it's going to be a draw for people to read about a local crime, about these local individuals, about the trial. I mean, I know there's a lot of drama that's associated with that. There's probably a part of my thinking that Roland is probably looking down on this and thinking this is a real kick that someone has written a book about him. He was a very dramatic guy in that regards. But I also think it's important to not lose track of him. I think a lot of true crime books, certainly when I was trying to teach myself how to write in this genre, which I didn't really know much about, they focus on the killer. They focus on suspects. They don't necessarily focus on the person who died. My hope is that people will read this book, learn about him, learn about who I think is a very colorful character that lived here in Springfield, practiced law here in the Ozarks, and that they will not forget him because I do think he is just one of a kind.
Sounds like if there were a few more characters thrown in for purposes of artistic liberty, you could have one of these Knives Out films.
Yeah,
with
you
the
could have
wolves and it just seems like you got some colorful storylines woven in.
It is it. There are I've actually explained this book to people and they're like, this is nonfiction.
Yeah.
And I mean, and so like that to me, I think has been good as a writer because there's very little I could screw up. I just had to be very straightforward in telling this story, and I think it speaks for itself. And so I just hope if I reported it fairly and reported it accurately, that people will not only enjoy this book, but maybe learn a little bit about the criminal justice process, learn a little bit about what it's like to be a lawyer, and learn a little bit about Roland. That's my hope.
The book, which again is The Wicked Among Us, Murder, Blackmail, and the Book Collecting in the Ozarks, the 20th available? Is that
Available
correct?
January 20th. You can pre-order anytime before that. We will be doing, like I said, ABC books on January 31st. And so we're very excited about some of the events that we have lined up in Springfield to talk about this.
James Owen, appreciate you coming in the studio. I know you've been traveling around quite a bit, so it's good for you to stop by.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you.
You bet. As always, Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041, streaming live, KSGF.com. Tomorrow's Friday. We will be at Scramblers doing the Friday Road Show live. But first, well, there's a lot of stuff before that. Right now, traffic.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 43. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Friday, partly sunny and breezy with a high near 46. And for Saturday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 31.
And we got Caitlin back in studio with us, which means it's Springfield Symphony time performance coming up. The Clown. How are you? Oh, I turned on the right microphone. There we go. Now I'm ready for you.
Yes.
My apologies.
Good,
My apologies.
yes.
Yes. All right. So Sarah made the comment off air, or well, no, you were asking how our holidays were, and I don't know why. I was thinking we'd seen you since then, but I guess not. It's only been a couple weeks, I guess, into January. So. Yours were they good?
They were great. I just had a nice quiet time at home. It was great.
With the cats? Do you still have cats?
Yes. Got all my cats and dogs.
Well, wonderful. That is great to hear. All right, so The Clown, tell us about this.
Yes. So this weekend's performance is called The Clown. The main piece that's being performed is Stravinsky's Petrushka, which is a ballet, originally a ballet, and score is absolutely great. But it's also kind of like a mystery thriller. It's very suspenseful and dramatic. So, and one of the title characters is the clown. It's a clown, a ballerina, and another character that kind of have like a love triangle, but there's like murder and like mystery and lots of cool things in the story. So it's going to take the centerpiece and open the show this weekend. So if you like dramatic music, this is a perfect place for you to come.
Now, like most people, I'm aware of clowns.
Yes.
But I think of clowns in the context of America and circuses and the animal balloons. I mean, is this sort of historically, and this character, is it the same sort of clown or something different?
I believe it is set like in a circus
Okay.
atmosphere. But it's kind of the more I don't want to say like a comedic clown, but more like the dramatic, the gesture kind of.
Got it. All right.
kind
Yeah,
of
sure,
clown portrayal.
So not so much the one who squirts water from a flower lapel or anything, but okay.
So that's going to be the first part of the show. And then the second part of the show is we're doing a piano concerto by Rachmaninoff, who's one of Kyle's favorite composers. And we have a guest artist called Wei Young Chang. She is the 2025 Helm competition winner. That's a local competition here that young adults from 18 to I think 26 come and compete here in Springfield. And she won last year. And so as part of her prize, she gets to play with us. So she'll be being our piano guest artist, and she's absolutely phenomenal player.
It seems as if, I don't know if it's always, but a great deal of the time there is highlighted a guest artist with performing. Is that common for symphonies, or is that something that is
It's fairly
unique?
common.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's most
I didn't know if it was
symphonies-
with such consistency.
Yeah,
It's-
I mean, every symphony orchestra runs
Right.
differently, but for the most part, what I've experienced is most of them do have a guest artist, or they have something coming
Okay.
in that's that hook to get you excited.
Yeah, sure,
But
sure.
we always do love our shows that just are our pure
Yeah.
orchestra, and it's just
Right.
these are our people here, and it's fantastic to hear them.
Behind the baton?
Yes, we have Behind the Baton. You'll get to do a Q&A with Wei Yun, and it's tonight at 5:30 at First and Calvary. But
Okay.
also remember, there's a lot of stuff going on at MSU this weekend with Tournament of Champions, so it's going to be all right there together. So it's going to, if you want to arrive early to get your parking and all that fun stuff.
Not a bad idea.
Yes,
It's a
but
good venue.
it is. We love having it there,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a great session tonight with her, and we'll get to kind of hear about how she became the pianist she is today.
I know we're, I mean, obviously the season doesn't coordinate necessarily with the year, but how many performances left in the season, and anything that people maybe want to get a heads up
Yeah,
on?
so we have so this will be our fifth performance, and so we'll have four more. So we have February, March, April, and May left. February is our show on Valentine's Day, so if you're looking for a great Valentine's Day gift that's kind of special, come have a date night at the symphony with us. And that one's called The Painter. And then we have some guest artist vocalists coming to perform some pieces. And then we have our March show is Broadway Giants. So if you love Broadway, you love Andrew Lloyd Webber and Stephen Sondheim, like that's the show for you. We'll be partnering with Missouri State theater and dance department, so they will be on stage joining us. It'll be really fun. And then April, we have Eroica, which is the not Napoleon Symphony.
Got
It
it.
was based on Napoleon at first, but then based on Beethoven's realizations, he said, I don't want to name it after him anymore. So, and we will have Aubrey Oliverson, who is an amazing violinist who kind of joined us last minute last year. She had to step in like with a week and a half notice for a guest artist that we had to change. And so she will be back having a full performance with us. And then, of course, May is our St. Louis Ballet collaboration with Cinderella. So tickets are already going really fast for
Okay.
these last shows. So if people want them, head over to springfieldmostsymphony.org.
And of course, if they, some people still like to really just not buy that stuff online.
You can-
The box office open there at
Yeah,
Juanita.
always go to Hammond's Hall box office. They're at Juanita K, and they'll help you out as easy peasy.
All right, awesome. Well, it's great to see you as always. Glad your
Yes.
holidays went well. Caitlin Pack, Springfield Symphony, and look forward to your next visit.
Yes.
Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, most of us, they don't think about our heating system on a normal day. It's just supposed to work. Flip it on, the house warms up, and then you just move on with your life. But when it doesn't work, everything stops. You think, who am I going to call? How much is this going to cost? How long am I going to have to wait until this actually gets fixed? That's why it's always smart to stay ahead of all of that. Having your heating system checked and serviced before it's under constant strain can save you time and money later on, and that's where Foreman Mechanical Heat and Air comes in. They handle all kinds of heating systems, and they work with both residential and commercial customers. And if an issue does pop up, the Foreman team, they also offer a 24/7 emergency service line. If it's time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Talking earlier about how Josh Hawley ended up being targeted by Donald Trump and his declaration Josh Hawley should never be reelected to any office again because of his efforts to join up with Republicans, and then the usual, or with Democrats rather, in the Senate, and then the usual Murkowskis and Collins and those folks to pass legislation restricting the executive branch's ability to exercise what the Trump administration argues is its constitutional authority when it comes to being commander-in-chief of the military. And it specifically targeted Venezuela. And now we also mentioned that he switched that position along with the Republican senator from Indiana, which then allowed J.D. Vance to come in and break the tie vote and block the Democrats' efforts to do that. And Josh Hawley, when he is in the news for his legislative efforts, particularly those in which he joins forces with Bernie Sanders or Ocasio-Cortez or any of the other Democrats. He is, in my assessment, he's not doing a very good job. He's not serving the country well. He's not serving the state well, and he certainly isn't serving the Republican Party well. That being said, when it comes to questioning witnesses, there is no one better in the Senate, and there's no one that serves the country and the state better and the Republican Party better than Josh Hawley. This is where he's like one of the Sour Patch Kids, when it comes to legislation and those sort of meaningful efforts. He's sour, he's bad, it's awful. But the sweet side is when he's grilling and questioning somebody, and that's when he really shines. And yesterday was yet another example of that. And there is a discussion regarding. It actually had to do with the issue, I believe, of abortion, and so the hearing was titled "Protecting Women, Exposing the Dangers of Chemical Abortion Drugs." And just a bit of background on this. This has to do with that methylpristine. I forget exactly how it's pronounced, but it's the abortion pill that the left has taken to altering from, like every other abortion, you have to actually, see the doctor who's going to do it and so forth, to where you can just get it through the mail. And about 10% it's a very, very dangerous drug. And about 10% of women who take it end up with serious side effects, hemorrhaging oftentimes, hospitalization, sometimes people dying. And so it is. I don't know if there's any other drug on the market that is as dangerous to women as it is. And so Republicans are pushing efforts to, at the very least, make sure that if a woman is going to get an abortion that way, she's got to go, have some sort of medical observation in some capacity, has to visit a doctor, whereas Democrats, they are not concerned about, they just see that 10% as you got to crack a few eggs. You're going to have abortions. We're killing people anyway. So if some of those individuals are intentional deaths, that's, it's just the way that it is. And they also try to falsely claim that, well, it's no more dangerous when you look at the statistics of Tylenol, for example. And that's a faulty comparison. And I bring this up because it's a tactic they use, because the negative side effects of Tylenol are, the vast majority of them are either accidental overdoses or intentional overdoses. And so it was a misuse of that particular drug, as opposed to the abortion pill, in which the 10% of extreme negative side effects are from the intentional, the proper usage of the drug. And so that's what this Senate discussion, this hearing was all about. And so the Democrats bring an expert who is a doctor on in order to argue their side of the discussion. And it got to the issue of definitions, and this is the exchange that Senator Hawley had with this left-wing doctor by the name of Nisha Verma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since you bring it up, why don't we just start there? Dr. Verma, I wasn't sure I understood your answer to Senator Moody a moment ago. Do you think that men can get pregnant?
I hesitated there because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going or what the goal was. I mean, I do take care of patients with different identities. I take care of many women. I take care of people with different identities. And so that's where I paused. I think, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question is.
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics. So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities, but
can men get pregnant?
Many women that can get pregnant. I do take care of people that don't identify as women. Can
men get pregnant?
Again, as I'm saying,
let me just remind you what you testified to a moment ago. Science and evidence should control, not politics. So can men get pregnant? You're a doctor, I think.
should guide medicine.
Science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant, biological men. Can they get pregnant?
also think yes no questions like this are a political tool. And
No, yes, no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about science and evidence. And I'm asking you, the United States Supreme Court just heard arguments yesterday at great length on this question. This is not a hypothetical question. This is not theoretical. It affects real people in their real lives. And you're here as an expert, called by the other side as an expert. And you've been telling us that you follow, right, you're a doctor, and you follow the science and the evidence. So I just want to know, based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think.
I think you're trying to reduce the complexity of a lot.
I'm not. I'm trying to get, it's not complex. I'm trying to get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating
This is
male
extraordinary.
and
No, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's biological men and there's biological women. And I want to know, can men get pregnant?
what you were talking about is
You're
biological
not going to answer my question, it sounds like.
males.
This isn't hard, doctor. Can men get pregnant? Yes or no?
I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you that is not coming from a place of trying to be polarized and push
I'm
me.
not trying to be polarizing. I'm trying to ask. I think it is extraordinary that we are here in a hearing about science and about women. And for the record, it's women who get pregnant, not men.
And there was getting into the issue of the abortion itself and so forth that went on there, but it just gives you an idea that this is what the Democrats and all of the experts they have, and this isn't the first time this has happened. This is whom it is that they expect people to trust. It is astounding to me that any hospital, any practice would entrust and pay someone to care for patients when it comes to medical decisions that won't even answer or is incapable of answering a fundamental question that's so basic 5- and 6-year-olds understand the concept. And I think what's obvious here is the fact that she knows the answer. She also knows that she's wrong, but she's willing to be medically wrong because of her political belief and ideology. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Tomorrow, Friday, we will be doing the show live, as we always do. Friday Road Show at none other than Scramblers. A chance for you to come by, have breakfast, and say hey if you'd like to. We'll probably have some stickers on hand as well, so we will see you tomorrow. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.